Hello children. Now in this part, we will take up the last part of chapter human reproduction, and we are going to see that how this placenta formation takes place. So basically, what is this placenta? It is the intimate connection which is established between the fetal membrane and the uterine wall. That is called as placenta. We can also call it as mechanical and physiological connection, because there are physiological connections also, exchange and material of all those things are there, and the mechanically also it is connected. So it is not only connected through the this structure, that is a placenta, but that is bringing the connection by exchange of various material also. So it is in process also and mechanically also. So mechanical and physiological connection between maternal and fetal blood, or maternal blood, mother's blood, and the baby's blood, that is called as placenta. So here, if we see, this placenta has two parts. One is the fetal part. So that fetal part, it is developed from the chorion of the embryo. So the chorion part of embryo forms it, and the maternal part, that is from the this mother's part, the endometrium lining that attaches it, right? So this now, if you see, this layer, this is an endometrium that is lined by myometrium, this which is the muscular part. And this maternal part, it has three further parts, that is decidua basalis, decidua capsularis, and decidua parietalis. So decidua basalis, it is, if you see, this endometrium lining is there, after that myometrial lining. So this chorionic villi, it penetrates through this endometrial lining till the time it reaches maternal blood. So this is the fetal part which is emerging out, that is chorionic villi. So the chorion of the embryo, it forms the fetal part, whereas the maternal part, that is formed by this decidua basalis. So this here, the connective tissue which are present here, that is decidua basalis, which is the maternal part of placenta. The other part, that is decidua capsularis. Now when this blastocyst, it comes in contact with the endometrial lining, what happens is that gradually this is covered by a layer. So that is covered by endometrial layer, and that is named as decidua capsularis. And then the third part is decidua parietalis. It is actually spread out in the area which is other than chorionic villi. So that means it has nothing to do, it is simply supporting. So these are the three parts of maternal part. So placenta consists of fetal part as well as maternal part, that is mentioned here. All right. This placenta almost weighs 500 grams. All right. Then this fetus is connected to placenta by umbilical cord. Suppose if we see, this is the embryo, and from this embryo, this part is, suppose we see the placenta. So from the fetus reaching out to placenta, the cord which is developed, that is called as umbilical cord. And this is say 12 to 24 inches long, and in fully formed fetus, that is in 11 weeks, it is formed completely, right? This placenta is formed completely, and it remains there throughout the pregnancy. Now we also see the type of placenta. See, placenta basically are of various types depending upon its development, the number of layers which are there, which comes in between, like there is a connection from here to here, the number of layers, depending upon that also there is the type of placenta that is studied. And then the distribution of villi, how it is done, also on the nature. So there are various types, but that all is not in there in your course. You can simply understand, I've written here few terms. The placenta, human placenta, is metadiscoidal. That means villi are present all over, and then later what happens, that it comes to a disc, that means in the center. So disc like it forms metadiscoidal. Chorionic, that means chorion helps in forming this placenta. So that is called as chorionic placenta. There are four extra embryonal membranes: allantois, yolk sac, and your amnion and chorion. So amnion does not take part in any of the this formation, whereas chorion it does take part. So the chorionic villi, that is of humans. Then hemochorial, hemo means it is actually blood, and this chorionic villi, it remains always dipped in the maternal blood, so the name is given hemochorial. And then it is deciduate types, that means both maternal and fetal part of the placenta, it gets completely lost once the parturition takes place, or the fetus is completely expelled out. All right, now let us come to the functions of placenta. So it helps in the nutrition, that means from the mother to the child, the nutrition which takes place, that exchange that helps, that is done through this placenta. Then respiratory gas exchange, intake of oxygen, that means that oxygen goes inside, whereas it collects the carbon dioxide gas from the fetus. Then this placenta, it is also known as a temporary endocrine gland, because it secretes a hormone that is known as progesterone. Along with progesterone, it also secretes another hormone. You all know progesterone is secreted by corpus luteum also. So once this is reached and placenta is formed, so progesterone is being secreted by placenta also. Other than progesterone, there is secretion of small amounts of estrogen and HCG. HCG is human chorionic gonadotropin hormone. And other than then, there is one more, human placental lactogen, that is also secreted. So human chorionic gonadotropin hormone, it is produced by chorionic villi. Then human chorionic lactogen, it is or placental lactogen, that is also secreted. So supplying these hormones that help in the pregnancy, and they this also helps in the production of milk after the birth. So this placenta, it permits the passage of these certain hormones. Then this acts as a barrier. Placenta acts as a barrier between the maternal blood and the fetal blood, but there are certain substances which can pass through them, so they are called as transplacental substances. Okay, so transplacental substances can pass through this placenta. And what are those things? Like HIV, it can pass through placenta. Nowadays there are vaccines and not exactly vaccines, some antibiotics are there which can control, otherwise HIV can easily pass through placenta. Also there are certain other substances like nicotine, some additive drugs like cocaine, heroin can also pass through them. Then there is another term, that is teratogens. So teratogens, they actually are those substances which once they can enter, they can also enter, they are also transplacental. So they can once they enter, they can cause deformities like flipper hand and all. So if like mercury, it enters and the disease is called as Minamata disease, so that can take place. Then this also helps in attaining passive immunity, because IgG, that is immunoglobulin G, that can cross this placenta and it can reach, so that it can provide a kind of passive immunity to the fetus. Placenta also helps in removing the nitrogenous waste. So that these are all the functions of placenta which we have seen here. Okay, now the next part is the extra embryonic membrane. So there are four different types of extra embryonic membranes which are there: amnion, chorion, yolk sac, and allantois. Amnion is developed from trophoblast. Chorion is found in the egg in amniotes, mainly reptile, birds, and mammals. Then this yolk sac is present in animals. In humans it is greatly reduced. And then the fourth is allantois. So this is poorly developed in humans, allantois also. So if you see the structure, if suppose this is the embryo, so the first part, that is, you can see it coming out like a sac like structure, yolk sac, and it is greatly reduced in case of humans. In birds, they are because their egg they need self-sufficient. These eggs are, we call them cladoic eggs, if you remember. So very well developed it is in case of birds and reptiles, whereas in humans, since they are getting the nourishment through the placenta, so it is not needed. So yolk sac, what is the function of this yolk sac? It absorbs and uh, passes all the nutrition to the embryo, and it helps in formation of extra embryonic gut. In humans it is very poorly developed, and nourishment is through maternal tissue, that is why it is not needed. And it is very well developed in birds and reptiles, so they form cladoic eggs and they are self sufficient. Now this yolk sac, if you see, the inner membrane is covered with endoderm and outer derm is covered with mesoderm. This condition is called as uh, plure. Then allantois, that stores all the second extra embryonic membrane. It stores all the waste material, and it removes also extra. You can say it behaves like extra embryonic kidney. It is also poorly developed in humans because that function is taken up by placenta, and so this function in humans it is poorly developed, right? Then next is amniotic cavity. So it helps in providing the medium. So you can see there is a huge sac which covers this entire embryo or the fetus, so that is amnion. And this gets filled with the fluid that is called as amniotic fluid, so it provides aquatic medium for the fetal cells so that they can get the proper medium for their growth. Then they get detached from the fetal body once after the parturition, and there is a method in by which this can be extracted out, and they are tested. That process is called as amniocentesis. uh, we have talked about this before also. Then the function is it behaves like a shock absorber, and this gives a aquatic medium for its growth. Then chorion helps in exchange of gases. It acts like extra embryonic lungs, and it helps in the placenta formation. We have discussed about it. So if you see these membranes, how are they actually named? So there are two different names which are given here. One is splanchnopleure and other is somatoplure. So that depends upon the type that which membrane has taken the development inside and which has taken outside. So depending upon this, we can see the different names are given to these different layers. So if you see, allantois is gives the complete, it keeps the complete embryo inside, and the entire structure is called as amnion. So in yolk sac, outside is the mesodermal lining and inside is endoderm. Allantois is also the same. So we call these two splanchno plure. Then, in case of amnion, in inner layer is ectoderm, outer layer is mesoderm, and in chorion it is lined with the outer ecto and inner meso. So they are called as somatoplure. These two layers are common in this, that is ecto-meso, and that one is also ecto-meso. So they are somatoplure. Depending upon these terms are given. Okay. Now the next part is the parturition. Okay, how this parturition takes place? Expulsion of fully formed fetus from uterus after completion of gestation. So there are two important things here, that there is a fully formed fetus, and that is expelled out when the gestation period is completed. Otherwise, if it is not completed, then what happens? There can be possibility of abortion. This parturition or this whole thing is neuroendocrine. The mechanism is neuroendocrine. That means both the systems, nervous system, endocrine system, they are involved. Fetal ejection factor is released from the fully formed fetus. Once the fetus is fully formed, then there is a factor that is released, and placenta it signals, and then they are released. So this fetal ejection factor, this stimulates mild uterine contractions, and from where this is coming, this reflex actually stimulates the pituitary gland, maternal pituitary gland, so that it can start releasing oxytocin, which is a birth hormone, and which begins the mild uterine contractions. Hence uterine contractions increases, so that give rise to labor pain. Due to this, the embryo is pushed out, and how that the changes take place in the cervix also, it gets dilated so that the expulsion of the fetus can begin. So first the head part moves out, so that is being pushed out of the cervix through these contractions. And once the fetus is pushed out completely, the connection, that is placenta, is also lost. So we can see that there are three phases in this parturition. First phase is dilation, and the hormone relaxin, it dilates the cervix. Then second is expulsion phase. In this, hormone oxytocin, it induces strong uterine contractions, that is called as labor pain. So that results in the rupturing of amnion, and the fluid gets lost, that amniotic fluid, which results in the expulsion of fetus. And after birth, the third phase, that is the loss of placenta, and takes place. The size of the uterus decreases. Then the umbilical cord is also cut, and as soon as there is an ejection out of this fetus, the lungs of the baby that expands, and the child starts to breathe. So the first breath is breath, that is the cry of the child. Mental health can get affected if the child is does not give that sound of cry immediately, because that is the first breath when the child takes, and the normal circulation starts. And if it does not happen, so then what happens, in the previous classes we have discussed about the hole in the heart. So what happens is that this foramen ovale, during this part, that also closes the auricular and ventricular septum. It has a small hole in between, that is foramen ovale. So if it does not close, then the blue baby syndrome occurs. So sometimes what happens, that it fails to close, and that results in the hole in the heart, that disease this appears. Sometimes what happens, also the force which is applied is less, so cervix is not dilated the way it should dilate, and in that case the fetus is to be removed surgically. So we call it as cesarean or c-section. Then once this parturition is over, the next part that comes is the lactation. It has two parts, formation and secretion, and the next part is ejection of milk. So that is done from alveoli of mammary gland. So stimuli plays a very important role here. So this also takes place in two phases. First is the secretion or formation by alveoli. So prolactin, it stimulates alveoli of mammary glands, and the epithelium, it starts secreting the milk so that it can be given out. Then prolactin, that is a hormone which is secreted by anterior pituitary. Its secretion is stimulated when estrogen and progesterone levels are low. See, when the placenta is lost, what happens, that the connection is lost, and placenta is actually acting as an endocrine gland, so it is secreting progesterone and estrogen. Once the connection is lost, so that means it is dead, so the levels of the hormone are also low. And then what happens, that prolactin secretion is stimulated. So this low level of progesterone and estrogen, it stimulates anterior lobe of pituitary to secrete prolactin. Then this milk production, that is called as lactogenesis, and maintenance of this continuous production of or the flow of milk, that is called as galactogenesis. And in this there are three hormones which are helping, that is growth hormone, thyroxine, and cortisol. So that is the first phase of the this lactation. The next part is milk ejection. So oxytocin, it brings about the contraction of muscles around the mammary glands, and then milk is let out of the gland. So the first initial part of the milk that is ejected out, that is called as colostrum. It is very, very important for the fetus. So the first produced milk, which is pale, it is little thick, little creamish, you can say, appearance, and it is very essential for newborn fetus to provide passive immunity, because it is rich in immunoglobulin A. There are various types of immunoglobulins which you will read in detail in class 12. So immunoglobulin G, which I told you, that is transplacental IgG, that comes through the placenta, whereas this IgA, that comes through the milk. So there is a stimulus, that sensory stimulus. Where does it comes from? It comes from the suckling of the child. So when the child suckles, when the fetus sorry, the baby suckles, then this sensation, this stimulus that is received by the brain, and that helps in this production and secretion. There's also emotional stress, that when the child cries, then also it acts like a stimulus. That is why the name is given neuroendocrine reflex. So neuro that is related with hypothalamus brain, and the sensory stimulus which is received, and endocrine reflexes, the hormones and the glands which are bringing the changes. Then the milk which is ejected out, that consists of water, minerals, the milk protein, that is seasoned milk protein, carbohydrate, sugar, that is in the form of lactose, fat in the form of oil droplets. So we can say it is a complete food because it helps in providing immunity. It consists of IgA. Also, it helps in the nourishment of the proper nourishment it can provide. So it is a complete food. Now there are certain terms which we have discussed all through the chapter. I'll take them up here. We may consider them as a certain disorder also. Oligospermia, when the sperm count is less than the normal count. There are big number, millions of sperms which are released. So when this is less, this condition is called as oligospermia. It can lead to sterility. Azoospermia, so that is nearly the absence of sperms. Sometimes number of sperms, when after insemination they get collected around vagina. So what happens that many are not able to reach to that condition where they can go and fertilize. So that condition is sterility. Next is cryptorchidism. When the testes they fail to descend in the 7th month. You all know that they are abdominal till the 7th month, and in the 7th month they descend down in the scrotum to keep the temperature feasible, or you can say optimum for the production of the sperms. So that is cryptorchidism. If they fail to descend, then the disorder that occurs is inguinal hernia. So see, if suppose these are the scrotal sac and there is a space through which they descend down. So and in this through this space provided, vas deferens carries the sperms and they reach them to the urethra and then to the penis to be given ejected out. So if what happens is that if the loop of the intestine hangs in through this cavity, it gets into the scrotum. What happens that there is a pressure which is put on this vas deferens, and they stop the movement of this sperm. So this through this pressing on this vas deferens, their movement is barricaded here. They are stopped. So that also causes sterility. Next is gynecomastia. When the males they show feminine characters, so especially enlargement of the mammary glands, that is called as gynecomastia. Then next is hysterectomy, surgical removal of uterus, that is hysterectomy. Okay. Then next is menopause. We also call it as a climacteric period. That is the stoppage of the menstrual cycle. Menarche is the first onset of menstruation. Then ectopic pregnancy. Zygote, it remains in the fallopian tube when the fusion is done, and when it fails to reach to the uterus, then that is called as ectopic pregnancy. Then there is another term, teratology, the study of teratogens. Teratogens, I told you, they are the transplacental substances. We call them as teratogens. So study of teratogens and their effect, that is called as teratology. The study is called as teratology. Okay, then the next is twins. Okay, so there are two types of twins, monozygotic and dizygotic. Monozygotic there is only one zygote which is formed, and if you remember, I told you, in the initial days when the blastomeres are formed, so each blastomere is able to form a complete organism or individual. So in that case, what happens is if the separation takes place, so the fraternal twins they arise. So in this case, what happens that the sex remains the same, because when zygote which is formed is one only, and during the time of cleavage, what happens, some blastomeres, they fail to divide, and then they start growing into another complete organism. So in that case, sometimes some portion, they develop into two different body parts of two different individuals, whereas some part that fails to divide, that remains attached. So that causes Siamese twins. And in these both cases, the sex remains the same. Suppose the X chromosome of the ovum gets fused with the gynosperm, that is the X of the male, then after mitotic division, they will form both as the daughters. Whereas if the X is fused with endosperm, so in that case, both male will be formed. So here in this case, the sex remains the same because zygote which is formed is one, and they develop like this. Whereas in case of dizygotic, what happens, that there are two separate eggs. They get fertilized by two separate sperms. Okay, so there may be one can be fused with endosperm, another one can be fused with gynosperm, and there are two different zygotes which are formed. That is why the name dizygotic sperm is given, and that results in identical twins, but their sex may be same, it may be different. So this was all about the unit 1, that was reproduction, and chapter 4 we have already discussed. So next we will continue with the next unit in our next session. So till then, I hope it is clear. So all the best for your test. Thank you, children. One more thing I would like to add to this part is that I have already told you about the portion which has been deleted out. So you can just check it once again from reproductive health, that is chapter 4, population explosion, role of government in controlling population. This you have to delete. Rest all is there. From human reproduction, male organs and female reproductive system, their organs and their function, difference between oestrus and menstrual cycle. Since we have already done it, but this is not there in your course. And from the chapter sexual reproduction in flowering plants, that is chapter 2, flower structure, pollination, types, agencies, example, outbreeding devices, development of seed, formation of fruit, significance and dispersal of fruit formation. Have you got it? Types of pollination like autogamy, chasmogamy, clistogamy, geotenogamy, xenogamy, adaptations in flowers pollinated by wind, water, insect, advantages of self cross-pollination, contrivances of prevention of self-pollination, changes in the ovary and ovule for seed and fruit formation, fruits to be classified into true and false, structure of LS of a typical fruit, mango and coconut, internal structure of dicot and monocot, maize, definition and difference and example of albuminous, non-albuminous seed, significance of seed and fruit formation, significance of dispersal of seed. This all is not there. Please cancel all this part. Then reproduction in organism, the first chapter, events in the sexual reproduction, pre-fertilization, gametogenesis and gamete transfer in plants and animals, fertilization, definition, type, external, internal, post-fertilization, embryogenesis, definition and examples of parthenogenesis, all this is cancelled. Reproduction, a characteristic feature of all organisms for the continuation of species. This whole thing has been removed. So please sit with your syllabus in front of you, and whatever I have read out for you, you please cancel that portion out. Rest of the things are there, that is there in your course. All right. So next, when I'll begin with the next chapter, I'll tell you about the next part which we have to take up. Okay. So you can mark this and prepare this much. Thank you, children. For unit 1, that is reproduction.